EP?
I agree. Well, I think everybody, including Dave, underestimated how well that EP was going to do.
Right, that's great. But at the same time, what you don't realize is muscle has to get behind something like that. That those videos weren't like Jump, filmed with 1 or 2 cameras. Those were intricate videos with big budgets. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But that was Dave's baby. He was continuing the video path that he had started with Van Halen.
Yep.
And yeah, he had some money and stuff like that. I mean, he was the lead singer for one of the top bands in the country.
Yep.
So, of course, the record company is going to throw some money his way.
Well, I tell you, who is approving all of that is the vice president, and that's fucking Ted. So I'm telling you, there's shit there that he's not saying. But anyway, we're going to move on, and we're going to go on to letter number 4, who comes from Rachel Richardson from London, Dave. She says here, I would like to ask a question of your show, if possible. Is David Lee Roth gay? And she says, in my opinion, no, because I know we don't hear about him accompanying or being spotted with any women. However, neither do we hear about him with any men. Sammy Hagar keeps publicly implying that he is. After the 1990s, we don't hear about David Lee Roth with any girlfriends, but there is an article in 2012 about a Japanese girlfriend and him living in Japan when he got tattooed. Why does Sammy keep implying that David Lee Roth is living a lie and how his public image is fake and how he's a whole different guy in public? What do you make of this, Dave? Well, I have to say, to stand up for David Lee Roth, when asked about it directly, and I believe it was like, I don't know, some sort of like gay magazine or something like that, he said flat out that he's not. However, Sam keeps taunting him. So I don't know what it is, if Sam's attracted to Dave or something. I don't know, I'm just joking around, but I have no idea. But it's the most disconcerting about the whole thing is Sam just keeps hammering Dave about it. Why Sam is even involved is a maze to me. Now, she also mentions, does he have any children in there? You know, there is this girl by the name of Brenda Lee Roth, which is funny that she even takes his middle name, which I think is hysterical. She kind of looks a little like Dave, I have to say that, but she is out there. She says that she's his daughter. It's only a rumor. Nothing's verified whatsoever. But I don't know. Maybe it's because Dave's so flamboyant. You know, perhaps people kind of take it the wrong way. What do you think it is, Dave? Why do people keep asking this question?
Because he's an easy target. You're right. He's flamboyant. He's not afraid to dress the way he wants to dress. He's never been married, right? All of these things, you know, they're kind of clues to whatever, you know? Mm-hmm. But first of all, it doesn't mean anything. And even if it did, like, who cares? I mean, my goodness, it's 2021 at this point. That's right. Okay? Who cares if he's gay or not? It doesn't even matter anymore. That's right. And I don't know why I know why Sammy keeps harping on it, because it gives him something to talk about. You know, it gives him sound bites, you know, things to post on the internet.
It makes him look ridiculous, though. I mean, it really does.
At this point, I mean, who cares?
That's right. I mean, like, for example, nobody is questioning, you know, your attraction to me. This has been going on for years, and you've been hiding that. But that's okay. We all know you're a chubby chaser at heart, and I am. I got a thing for bald fat guys. So that's right.
What can I tell you?
I'm a prime candidate. So we're at.
You know, I love you.
Of course, I know. I'm hard as we speak. You know,
next letter.
Letter number 5 comes from Kurt 5150 Snyder, and he says here, 2 things. You spoke about Van Halen 2000 recordings with David Lee Roth that never got anywhere due to David Lee Roth and his manager not wanting to do any official recording in 5150 Studios due to having no control or having it leaked. I bet you that was the reason the Different Kind of Truth record was recorded at Henson Studios. I bet that was Dave's demands. Your thoughts? I also have been doing a YouTube show called The 5150 Show with 2 other guys. We do it every other Friday night. We do deep dives on album tracks. I want everybody to check it out if you like. Kurt 5150 Snyder. So, yes, well, Kurt, yeah, I think David Lee Roth was very, very weary of working at 5150. Way too much Eddie Van Halen control. Dave loves Henson Studios. That's like his favorite place. Plus, Dave works different hours than Van Halen. If you listen to the episode we did with John Shanks very early on in the podcast, He talked about the different hours. He went back and forth with the guys. I think the guys kind of work during the day. Dave's definitely a night guy. He definitely had different ways of working. So, I guess in order to get it all done and make it all flow, you have to kind of work in different ways with the guys. And I think that's also the reason Dave wanted to make sure he had equal billing there. And obviously, if he's at 5150, it's going to be all in Eddie's home court. Yeah, everybody check out the 5150 show on YouTube. So Kurt does that, and you guys can check that out. Dave, what do you think about this?
Like you said, Dave was a big fan of Henson Studios, and so I'm sure it was a negotiated point to actually record there. But, if memory serves me correctly, I think they recorded there, but they still went back to 5150, and I think they remixed it there, and they may have re-recorded some stuff there. So, one way or another, they still got back to 5150 because that's where Ed liked to, Ed was used to it. He knew that place like the back of his hand, and he knew the sound, So what are you going to do? Again, you're dealing with raging egos, and you're trying to placate everybody and really just trying to get a good album. At the end of the day, that's what they got. So it doesn't bother me so much where it was recorded or it was recorded at different times with different people. At the end of the day, they made a kick-ass album, and that's really all I care about.
Yes, that's right. And letter number 6 comes from John Citrone, who likes to refer to himself as Jacksonville John. And he says, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of an LA-based band, mod rock duo called The Bird and the Bee, and they do Van Halen covers on their album Interpreting the Masters Volume 2, Van Halen, on which they offer up fantastic synth-heavy renditions of Dave-era classics. According to the band, they contacted Diamond Dave himself about appearing in the video. He turned them down but sent them a signed top head shown at the end of the video. We are geezers and may think we're the only ones who are keeping alive the memory of the mighty VH, but they are some young whippersnappers out there who are touched by the boys too. Keep rocking the podcast universe, Jacksonville John. Well, John, yes, we are well aware of it. We talked about them, over a year ago when we discussed that album, so that's always nice to see how Van Halen are honored. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I do remember that album. Again, not my cup of tea, but still nice to see new artists reinterpreting Van Halen. The band is still influential, so that's something we like to see.
Letter number 7 comes from the listener formerly known as Tacoma Dave is now Two Sheds Roberts, as I am now DC Dave. Oh, my God. We're now changing nicknames. So he says here, after listening...
I can't keep up, man.
I know. We gotta start a chart. So after listening to your interview with Brad Talinsky and Chris Gill, I decided to give Van Halen 3 an honest revisit. And I don't know if it's because I'm now in my 40s or if I'm dealing with some turmoil in my personal life, but I genuinely have a newfound appreciation for this album. While still far from my favorite Van Halen album, I genuinely feel like it is a genuine piece of art that captures a period of time, a series of emotions, and the voice of an artist screaming for someone to understand what it is that he doesn't know how to say. So, Dave, what do you think of that? Tacoma Dave, Two Sheds Roberts, now DC Dave. Yes, I totally agree. I wish more people would revisit this album. I think you nailed it with your description. There is some great pieces on there, but it's definitely a little twisted in some ways, and it's certainly interesting for sure. I wish they had a documentary that kind of followed that along. You wish that they had a documentary like Some Kind of Monster, which is the Metallica documentary. I agree with you. I totally believe. However, I think Andrew Bennett has some material he could put together that he might be comparable to that, because he was there during the 2004, mess of a situation with Sam. But, I don't know. What do you think, Dave?
I think Ed had some really good playing on Van Halen 3, but, and I go back to listen to it every once in a while, but the songs just aren't there, and Ed's playing alone doesn't do it for me to carry the album through. That's just where I stand. I know some people have reevaluated the album, after Ed's passing. My opinion about the album hasn't changed. It has its moments, but those moments aren't enough.
Well, will have the listeners know that you did note that Without You was one of your all-time favorite Van Halen songs.
No, that is a moment.
Okay.
I do like that song.
Okay.
I like it a lot, and I do think it's that good. But the rest of the album, some of the songs are meh, and some of the songs are just oof.
Okay.
Oof.
Okay.
Very disappointing coming from a major rock band that, always had an album that was at the least very good, and it certainly didn't meet my expectations for that.
That's for sure. Letter number 8 comes from Shannon the Dude, who is now known as Mr. Dude. He says, great interview segment this month. Just heard my letter. Loved your reply. I am genuinely laughing. Mr. Dude. He's now calling himself Mr. Dude. People are changing their nicknames. One thing I'm reading in this letter here, somehow I think it didn't all come through because I didn't see an apology for your outlandish behavior in that letter, but that's okay. I realized you were trying to stage a coup, but I'd say, how dare you, sir? How dare you? But I will be waiting patiently for your apologetic letter, which I think is coming any day now. I keep checking my mailbox, but nothing seems to be in it. Mr. Dude, I leave the ball in your court, and we move on to letter number 9. And this comes from Sarah Smith. She comes out, and she's getting a little catty here. Did Valerie Bertinelli break up Van Halen? Was she the Yoko Ono of the band? The tensions and arguments started in 1981, right when Eddie Van Halen and Valerie Bertinelli married that year. Then David Lee Roth was forced out by 1985. Finally, when Valerie Bertinelli finalizes the divorce in 2006, David Lee Roth is back touring with Eddie Van Halen in 2007. David Lee Roth had a reputation for sleeping with other people's wives and girlfriends. He slept with Alex Van Halen's bride and mother-in-law the night before the wedding. And that marriage...
What? Come on!
I don't know where
What?
I have no idea where she's getting this from. So... And then he says, did he do the same with Valerie Bertinelli? She writes in her book and says on Oprah that she had an affair in 1985. She even says it was with a drummer from another band. But why would you identify the person? I think it was deliberate to throw people off of any suspicion the night she spent with Dave. Oh, my God, Sarah. She went on and on. It's very long, but I had to cut it off there. Well, let me tell you, I think Val was not a fan of Dave. I also didn't think that she liked to see her husband so stressed out. And I have no idea who Dave slept with, but I can guarantee you it wasn't Val. I think the guy she ended up having a relationship with was that guy from the Private Life band that Ed produced. Wasn't that Dave? There's something there that was in her book. I'm not revealing anything. It was out there already. I believe, these guys are animals. They live by a different code than normal human beings. So I can't tell you who slept with who. With the whole thing with Alex, I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know. Dave, I never heard of that. Did you hear that, Dave? What the hell is that all about?
I've heard rumors about Alex's wife, but I've never heard about his mother-in-law.
Woo! He's really
the same night? Come on!
The night before the wedding. It's very dramatic. Oh, my God.
I think Val encouraged Ed to assert himself and, defend himself and things like that. But I don't think she was a major mover in the breakup of the band or getting Dave out.
Yeah.
And I just think that the fact that Dave was back in the band after Ed and Al divorced, I think that's coincidence more than anything else. I think that's just Wolf was, he was 16 at the time and old enough to start playing with his dad and pick up the phone and invite Dave back in the band. I don't think Dave came back to the band because Val wasn't around anymore.
Yeah, right.
There's not that direct of a connection.
Yep. Letter number 10 comes from Darren McGuire, also known as DQ Magoo. He says, great job with the Cats, boys. Your brief discussion about Don Landy in the last episode left me wondering about the following question. Who do you consider the top ghosts in the history of Van Halen? By this I mean people who are very involved with the band at one point, but now have seemingly dropped off the face of the earth. Who are those you'd most want to interview? Well, Mr. Magoo, I will tell you it would be Don Landy, number 1. Number 2, Pete Angelus, who is the former stage and lighting director and also David Lee Roth manager in his later years. Don Landy, of course, the engineer. Rudy Liren, Eddie's guitar tech, as well as Ed Anderson, the security guard, who was also Dave's manager later in the career. What do you think, Dave? Any top ghosts for you?
Well, I think you nailed the list perfectly, man. I got nobody else.
Okay. All right. No problem. On to letter number 11, and that comes from Anthony Butrico, and he wrote a long letter. Had